Hey guys, so today's video is going to be all about me kind of shopping my own stash and encouraging you to shop your stash as well for dupes for new releases. I feel like the makeup industry is constantly coming out with new, and it's really good sometimes just kind of take a step back and look into your own collection and see what you have that could be comparable to see whether or not you really need that new palette. Now, I'm in no way saying don't go buy that new palette. If you really want it, girl, you go buy that. I am not saying don't go shopping, don't buy makeup. I love makeup. I still buy makeup even if I have some of the shades in my collection at home. But for those of you who are on a budget or a low buy or a no buy, or like me and are a broke college student, I just wanted to share some comparable shadows and dupes that you might already have in your collection. And just so I don't forget to mention, this is totally 110% inspired by Kelly Gooch. She does videos like this periodically on her channel and does such a fantastic job with them. So I'll link that down below if you guys want to go check her videos out on her channel. She's super sweet. I love her. You'll love her. Go check her out. So yeah, but if you want to see what dupes I came up with in my collection for some popular new releases, just keep watching. Alright guys, so the first palette that I want to talk about today is the Melt Cosmetics Gemini palette. I apologize already for having to just hold my phone up to show the pictures, but right now all I'm working with for editing software is Windows Movie Maker, and you can't like layer pictures over video, so this is what we're gonna roll today. But this is what the palette looks like. It was limited edition and it has sold out twice and it is not coming back in stock. So I was kind of bummed that I wasn't able to get my hands on this palette, A, because I'm on a low buy right now, and B, because it's super limited edition. So I went through my own collection and I was pleasantly surprised that I had pretty much almost the exact same shades and palettes that I already own. So I used 3 different palettes in my collection to dupe this palette. I used the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette, the BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette, and then the Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. So let's get in a little bit closer to look at the swatches and I'll show you exactly which shades I used from each palette. Alright guys, so these are the dupes that I came up with for the Melt Cosmetics Gemini palette. So starting with this shade right here, it's kind of just a warm tan shade. Excuse me, it has kind of a yellow base to it. I used the shade Unity from Anastasia Prism, and then for this shade, this is kind of an orangey yellow shade. It's really pretty. I used the shade New Wave from Subculture for this gorgeous coppery shade. I'm obsessed with this shade. I used the shade Eternal from Anastasia Prism. For these next 2 brown shades, I use the 2 browns from my BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette called Escape and Hipster. For this rich black shade, I just used the shade Obsidian from Anastasia Prism. For this really gorgeous shimmery green shade, I used Neon from the BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette. For this matte, deeper green shade, I used Untamed from Subculture. For this matte kind of like army green shade, I used Destiny from Subculture. And then for this final yellow shade, I used Edge from Subculture. So with these 3 palettes, I was able to dupe that palette, and I believe that palette retails for $55. I could be completely wrong, but for some reason that number is really sticking out in my head. So I saved myself 55 bucks and I can create some really similar, really beautiful and unique looks that I would have been able to create with that Melt palette with stuff that's already in my own collection. Alright, the next palette I want to dupe is the Urban Decay Beached palette. To me, this palette just looks like so beautiful and so summery. Like, I just feel like this is summer in a palette. I think it's gorgeous. To dupe this palette, I'm using my Dream Street palette from ColourPop and Kathleen Lights, and then my Jaclyn Hill and Morphe palette. Honestly, I think you could just buy one or the other of these and get really similar looks, but to be as close as I could shade-wise, I did use both of these palettes. Alright, so guys, here are the dupes that I came up with. For that really pretty light, bright champagne shade, I just used In Light from my Jaclyn Hill palette. For this more peachy shade, I used Moody from my Kathleen Lights palette. I couldn't tell in the swatches if this was supposed to be a matte or a shimmer, so this one's a satin finish, it's just kind of peachy. And then for this really nice, warm, just gorgeous coppery shade, I used the shade Firework from my Jaclyn Hill palette. And then for this nice warm brown, I used the shade Potion from my Kathleen Lights palette. And then for this next shade, now that I see these on my arm on camera, they look pretty much exactly the same, but when I was swatching them before, they looked a little bit different. So I feel like the one in the palette is a little more bronzy than the two shades that I have on my arm right now, but they're very similar still. This one is SBN from my Jaclyn Hill palette, and then this one is the shade Twinkle from my Kathleen Lights palette. This beautiful pop of teal is Pool Party from my Jaclyn Hill palette, and then this deeper, more, not navy, it's just a deeper blue, it's shimmery, it's Mermaid Boy from my Kathleen Lights palette, and then finally, this gorgeous, gorgeous shade is Meeks from my Jaclyn Hill palette. Okay, so the last palette that I want to dupe is the Give Me Glow, what is this called? Summer Vibes palette, I think is what it's called. It is such a gorgeous palette, and honestly, I really did consider purchasing this one, but then I thought, wait, I just bought a couple colorful palettes, and I know I have those basic browns and peaches in my collection. Let me see what I have. So to recreate that palette, I used the Bad Habit Aftershock palette, the BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette, and then my Jaclyn Hill palette as well. So alright, so for this shirt, this first kind of goldeny shade, I used the shade Trixie from my BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette. For this shade, I dipped into that same palette and took the shade Candy. For this shade, I dipped into my Jaclyn Hill palette and into the shade Pool Party. And once again, into the Jaclyn Hill palette for this shade called Jada. For this orangey shade, I dipped into my BH Cosmetics Festival Weekend palette, and I dipped into the shade Hippie. This shade is Sissy from the Jaclyn Hill palette. This is Surge from my Aftershock palette. This is the shade Chaser from that palette as well. And this yellow is also from that palette, and it is called Electronica. This gorgeous bronzy gold is from the Jaclyn Hill palette, as well as this soft brown, and then this deep brown, or this shade is called MFEO, and then this one is from the BH Cosmetics and is the shade Hipster. So guys, that's all the palettes that I'm going to dupe today with palettes that I already have in my collection. I hope this really encouraged you to shop your stash and see what you have before you go and buy. But yeah, I had so much fun filming this video. I chose the last two because they were super summery, and then the Melt one because it just released, and I know I was really sad that I didn't get it, so I want to kind of share some alternatives with you guys if you missed out too. So yeah, if you enjoyed this kind of video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel down below to see more videos like this. I post 1 to 2 times a week. Lately it's been 2 because I have a lot of time on my hand. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.
So here are the swatches that I came up with. Which is the best way to show this? Okay. You know what, I'm going to show this a different way. So, to recreate... Dang it. I always forget to grab the palettes after I swatch them.